I want to make sure that we are hearing from you so that government does its part on your behalf. That's why I signed an executive order to reestablish the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders.
WIAPI was actually the first organization that made me feel not ashamed to be undocumented.
It wasn't just surviving cancer that changed my perspective on life, but it was through the exposure to the ACA that really changed the trajectory of my life.
I was glad that the White House Initiative was able to provide a platform for all of us to speak and tell these Asian American kids that we have your back.
WIAPI was that little spark that lit up the tinder in our community in all parts of America where people didn't even know where Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders were.
Back at the start of the administration, one of the things the community was most concerned about was to revitalize the initiative and bring it back to life. And it's something the president very much wanted to do. But he really also wanted it to be an initiative that the community would feel a part of and that we would have a reach across all the different ethnic groups that make up the AAPI community and all across the country as well.
You know, in 2009, there was a sense that while our community has progressed in so many ways, there still remain huge challenges in the administration. WIAPI was a way to help highlight some of the challenges and some of the important opportunities for the community.
Karen was just the right person for this. What attracted us the most to her was not just her knowledge of the community, but her roots in being, a grassroots organizer. And so she's really the one who took the possibility of the initiative and the breadth that it could have and made it reality on not a big budget, not a lot of resources, but a good organizer has the skills to pull in people, as she did, from across the federal government, and then to pull in people from across the community and get them all to buy into this vision of what the initiative could be and to contribute to it.
It really was starting from scratch. I kind of felt like my nonprofit days, at least I had a salary and I didn't have to worry about kind of paying the bills, but it was really about thinking through from the very beginning about what we wanted to put in place. And I remember taking the job and saying to myself, if I was going to be involved, I didn't want this to be an initiative in name only. I want to make sure that we're an initiative that focuses on getting things done. The first thing we did was set up the commission and bring in individuals who were well respected in their community, who came from different walks of life, to give us the kind of perspective we needed and to make sure that we knew about the kinds of issues that the community cared about.
We came here because the war ended in Vietnam. I actually lived in a town that was taken over by the communists before the end of the war. So my family had to make our way to the capital city, Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City. What happened during those chaotic days was we were just trying to get out. We were not thinking about where we wanted to go. We got on a barge, then we were lucky to be picked up by the American Navy. I came to this country when I was 10, and when I came, I did not speak any English. So it was all complete shock in every possible way you can imagine. Because of that experience, I have a very deep understanding of what it means to be an immigrant and to be poor and not to speak English, and how resilient people are. So when I go and meet people as a commissioner, they don't have to explain themselves to me. They don't have to tell me how hard it is. They say this is what the problems they're having and I get it. I thought it was a unique opportunity for someone like me to have some impact in Washington, D.C. When I'm a doctor and I'm a researcher, I see problems that need to be solved that I can't solve as a doctor or as a researcher, but I can see how policy can solve that. The other reason to do it is to represent the administration with the community members. The APIs are generally not seen very often in Washington, D.C. We feel like the more we show up, the more at least people see that APIs exist and they do matter. And the commission allows us to do that.
I don't think we could have chosen a more diverse group of individuals. I mean, we're talking about folks from Hawaii, from California, from Illinois, from New York. We're talking about folks who are from the Hmong, Cambodian, Indian, Chinese community. talking about individuals who are business owners, farmers, academics, physicians. So when you really talk about the heterogeneity in the API community, and really the diversity that we represent, I think the Commission and all the members that have served in this administration really exemplify how varied and different that we are.
For us as commissioners and the role of commissioners, I think what was really most impactful is that we really were able to bring the mountain, meaning Washington, D.C., inside the Beltway, the White House, to the people, out into the community. I met with the Burmese community in Oakland, California, and I have to say that is one community I don't know much about at all. They just filled the room. It was after work one evening, and people just kept coming and coming and coming. And they were extremely grateful that they had an opportunity to share and educate me about the Burmese community, their needs. But it's those one-on-one touches which I think really was most impactful.
A lot of people say that this commission is like very feisty, we're very action-oriented, we're not sitting back, and we want that to be the hallmark, again, of Asians in this country, you know what I mean? That we are going to speak up, we are going to stand up, and to be able to say, we're here and we've arrived.
So one of the structural legacies I hope that we really have implemented, and which I'm really extremely proud of, is a regional network.
The regional network was established in May of 2013 as a way to build relationships between the AAPI community across the country and the federal regional offices. I think there's this perception that the federal government is just in DC, when in fact there are regional offices across the country, from Hawaii to Boston to Kansas City.
The initiative is really special. It's the first time that I've been ever introduced to a program where we really have been able to make big differences in a short amount of time. We've hosted almost 80 events, and we've partnered with 44 federal agencies and reached so many individuals across 10 federal regions, holding technical assistance, grant writing workshops, Affordable Care Act enrollment sessions, and really bringing the service to them as opposed to making them come to the federal government. From a personal perspective, growing up in the Midwest and small Kansas City suburb of Independence, Missouri, being one of few Asian American or Chinese American families, it was really hard to identify as an Asian American or a Chinese kid. And so this initiative has really opened up my eyes. Working with the initiative, working with fellow colleagues across all 10 federal regions, and finally joining a staff at the initiative really helped me identify as an Asian American and be proud of who I am. Our community's having a voice now is really important to me because it's been the voice my parents never had. Being limited English proficient, being uneducated, being working class, they really haven't had that opportunity to connect with government. And so now it's kind of been my legacy to work the best I can to improve that for future generations.
The White House Initiative has played such a huge role in making sure that our community is connected to the White House, and the efforts are taking place every day. That when decisions are being made, conversations are taking place, that our community is at the table, sharing first-hand information and stories about what's impacting Americans on a daily basis. When I graduated from college in 2011, I was diagnosed with cancer. When I was going through my testing and I was hoping that my health insurance would cover that, my doctor informed me that our health insurance had informed him that they weren't going to cover anything related to my illness because it was a pre-existing condition. My parents are working class, so I know that we didn't have the funds to help me through the entire treatment. The biggest struggles I went through was just being on the phone back and forth with my insurance company, just trying to see if they can pay for any of the medical costs. That was really heartbreaking. After starting chemotherapy, the last thing I wanted to think about was how can I start an argument with my insurance company, and my family felt like time was minimal and we really had to figure something out. Through some research, I found out that I was covered under that, and I was able to get health insurance, and I finished the last half of my chemotherapy treatment and survived. And I honestly don't think that I'd be alive today without the Affordable Care Act.
I think one of the primary challenges facing the API population in terms of understanding the Affordable Care Act and then being able to access health coverage through the marketplace was that we have over 100 different languages that are spoken by AAPIs and a huge number of people who are limited English proficient. So understanding the materials that were put out, being able to complete the applications, being able to just even understand health insurance coverage is a challenge for that particular population. So I think WIAPI stepped into that gap first by partnering with community-based organizations to make sure that there was a bridge in getting that information to the communities from trusted partners. And on the back end also, we had a lot of meetings with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to elevate this issue around meaningful language access to ensure that AAPIs were able to access the benefits of the Affordable Care Act as was intended.
大家好。 联邦 Affordable Care Act 为公众提供了新的医保选择和多种福利，包括免费
lên nhìn đi tốt học.
Kính chào quý vị, tôi là bác sĩ Nguyễn Thanh Tùng, giáo sư.
My name is Cal Slay. Today is National Youth Lung Day, and I want to encourage you to sign up for health. As a 26-year-old cancer survivor, I know better than anyone that no one gets sick.
We met Vân just purely through community outreach, and she was shy and very quiet when we first met her. She had an interest in learning more about health and safety, and at the time she was experiencing a lot of health issues herself.
Chị đến nước Mỹ năm 2000, rồi đó thì khi chị đến đây chị mở tiệm là 2003. Rồi trong thời gian mà chị mở tiệm được tới 2005 thì chị có bầu đứa con gái. Nhưng mà khi mình cấn thai là những cái khi mình mở cho nước sơn ra, mình chỉ dâng sơn nè, hoặc là cái tin mà mình dùng nó làm cho mình rất là khó chịu, mà từ cái bao tử nó đưa lên, xong mình cũng không biết cái nguyên nhân. Thì nó cấn thai nó lại nó ra máu hoài, nó ra máu tới. Mình đi vô nhà thương thì bác sĩ cũng nói là nên nghỉ ngơi, nhưng mà công việc của mình thì không cho phép. Đó thì chị cũng phải tiếp tục làm, thì nó cứ hàng ngày nó cứ đều đặn nó ra thì chị chỉ dùng băng để mình băng thôi. Thì trời thương sao mà tới 9 tháng 10 ngày thì baby nó sinh ra thì nó ok. Tới 2009 là 08 thì chị có đứa thứ hai. Đó. Thì đứa thứ hai nó giống tình trạng như đứa thứ nhất thôi, nó cũng ra máu, nhưng mà khi mình vừa cấn thai là nó đã ra máu rồi. Thì bác sĩ cũng nói là bây giờ phải một là lấy ra, hai là phải tịnh dưỡng. Thì thật sự mình mê con, mình cũng muốn là có đứa thứ hai nữa thì sẽ thôi. Nhưng mà hai vợ chồng cũng cố gắng tới tháng thứ tư, 4 tháng thì baby nó không giữ được. Là mong muốn một đứa nữa, thì đứa này nó còn dữ dội hơn những đứa trước, là khi mà mang bầu 3 tháng đó là nó ra dữ lắm. Chị sợ nhất khi mà mình cấn thai em biết không, mình chỉ ôm cái bụng con, mình chỉ nói là con ơi con ôm bụng mẹ đi đó, con cứ ráng con bám bụng mẹ để con đừng có rớt ra ngoài, con đừng có tuột. Là em biết sao cái tình trạng đó, tại vì mình hiểu được là mình không có sức khỏe, là con cái mình nó cũng không được khỏe mạnh nữa. Khi mà chị trải qua rồi chị thấy thiệt phải thay đổi thôi nha.
The White House Initiative has been an amazing partner because they have been able to help elevate this issue of nail salon worker health and safety to a national and federal level. In fact, they helped create the interagency working group for nail salons. And what that is it was a group that we would meet on a quarterly basis and it was comprised of EPA, OSHA, NIOSH, the FDA, and it was a space where we could actually bring the voices of the workers to the table to be able to have a dialogue with these federal agencies. When we were doing a briefing in DC, she was a first, and she said, I want to go there and tell the story, and I want our federal leaders to hear what workers are facing, because this is our livelihood and this is something that is an economic cornerstone for so many immigrants.
Khi mà chị gặp những các cơ quan á, là 40 cơ quan lần đầu tiên họ hội họp, thì mình thấy là nó đối với mình là lần đầu tiên mà nó hơi lạ là một hai nữa, nhưng mà mình thấy nó rất là thoải mái. Họ lắng nghe, họ tiếp thu và họ thấy là những cái điều mình làm á, là họ giúp đỡ. Đó, tại khi mà cái ngành nghề như ngành nghề của mình á, mình không có lên tiếng, cái điều mà chị mừng nhất á, là tất cả mọi người đều biết và họ ủng hộ cái chương trình này, thì chị nghĩ sớm muộn gì họ cũng được thành công nha.
The urgency of Secretary Duncan's visit was really to highlight the need for us to do language preservation, that our Native Hawaiian students were falling through the cracks in the DOE system. We thought that it was important for Secretary Duncan to visit, to see that, to look our children in the eyes and see the importance of how significant teaching in a culturally appropriate manner made a difference.
Out of Hawaii schools will come her future doctors and farmers and technicians.
Since the United States being in Hawaii, our literacy rates have plummeted. We went from being one of the most literate countries in the world to one of the most illiterate amongst the major ethnic groups in Hawaii.
After the overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom in 1893, English would be the language for public education. That new law significantly closed the Hawaiian language schools. So within that, 90 years, from 1896 to 1986, we were down to less than 50 children below the age of 18 that were speakers of Hawaiian.
Many of us were forced to assimilate under the Americanization process, and so within that language is a whole entire knowledge system, perspective and worldview that many of us didn't have access to.
Re-establishing Hawaiian as a language of education is an attempt not only to bring back our language as a living and thriving language in Hawaii today, but to bring back a way of living. It represents our history, it represents our culture. And so by reacquiring that worldview, we can once again take our place in the global culture.
So I decided as a parent at 6 weeks old to place my child into this program. Of course, I was a teacher at that time as well. I think there's a lot of aspects of language and culture, values that are learned that are not necessarily a part of the regular educational system. And I think those are important to maintain him as a person, as a Native Hawaiian man in our community. Those characteristics and knowing who they are, they're able to adapt and to function and be flexible in different learning environments. And because I've seen that as a value at the secondary level, I also see that as a value as a parent and want to ensure that for my child as well. At the time of NCLB, when there was a push for assessments, all of the assessments at the time were all in English. And our program is fully immersed in the Hawaiian language. And so forcing the children to take a test that is not in their language of instruction is an automatic sign that they're not going to pass. The advocacy on the part of the school, as well as the push from parents, made us bring this to the attention of the Department of Education here in Hawaii, especially in the fact that the Hawaiian Immersion Program have been in existence for so long, and yet we don't have an assessment that's used to measure our school and our progress.
Welcome, Secretary Duncan. It is such an extreme honor to have you here on this coast.
Sometimes perhaps we kind of get lost in the shuffle of all 50 states and we're the island that's separate from, the mainland. To have somebody come here and to listen to our concerns, it was very evident that he was open to it, and it was very evident that he was really engaged.
This larger movement that you're helping to drive and push, I can't overstate how important that is, and whatever we can do to be good partners, we want to do it. Our kids deserve so much better than what they've had for a long time.
He was scheduled to be here only for 45 minutes, wound up staying for 2 hours. It was pleasant for us because he showed so much interest in the children of our school.
We made it a priority to be out there in Hawaii and engaging with the Native Hawaiian community across the country, frankly, from the first year. I think that's probably been one of the most kind of transformative experiences for me in my life, frankly, not just in my job as executive director, was engaging with the Native Hawaiian community that experience a lot of pain and anguish within their own history, but what they have done to bring kind of renewal to their history and their language and their culture is just astounding.
The White House initiative has been an amazing conduit connecting the government and the people here in Hawaii. I had the opportunity to be in the White House when the initiative was signed and not really knowing exactly what that would turn out to be. After 8 years, I can tell you that what WIAPI means to me and to many of our members at CNHA is that they have opened up and restored faith of the people in government.
When I first moved to the United States, it was a complete cultural shock. I only saw American culture on TV, and it was my first time actually stepping into this country and seeing what it was all about. I was the only Sikh person in my school, so I don't think they've ever seen a Sikh person in their school before, or in their life. So for me, it was just kind of taking the mysteriousness out and telling them I'm just one of you guys. We all like to play sports. We all like to go to recess and forget about class. It was like the first 2 weeks where I didn't feel too out of place, and then things just flipped really quickly. Most people at my school started associating the turban with bin Laden. I did try to do presentations in class to explain who I am, and for a lot of people it just fell on deaf ears. It was still rough because I went through bullying every day, and people always told me, go back where you came from. When I would get picked up, there would be parents that would say things to me or say things to my dad. That hurt me more just because they're grown people and they're hurling insults. And what went through that person's mind to make an 8-year-old kid feel bad like that? Once I got into college, I realized music is something I can do to push my message of my experiences in my early life. You could end up being whoever you want. You can be a musician, you can be the President of the United States, and it's all in the person's will to want to be a better version of themselves.
In addition to one child being bullied every 7 minutes, Sikh American and Muslim American children are bullied at twice the national average. And having an initiative at the White House that seeks to specifically address those concerns and hear our issues and be a voice box for us has yielded great results.
To take a stand against bullying, the initiative convened the AAPI Bullying Prevention Task Force. We held 29 listening sessions around the country, and we joined with community leaders to engage our AAPI youth. In response to the stories that we heard, we released a 2-year task force report, which outlines community recommendations to end bullying. And in October of 2015, the initiative helped launch a public awareness campaign called Act to Change.
Today is a celebration that we are one big community and that we have each other's back. I'm here for you, you're here for me.
The big thing that we want to do with Act to Change is create awareness in the Asian American community about the pervasiveness of bullying, the effects of bullying and what we can do to prevent it from happening in the first place, but then also if it is happening, what we can do to report on it and get the help that students so badly need.
You know, sometimes even confronting people, like, why do you think like that? Why do you do that? It could change a lot, the way the person thinks or the way they interact with you. So that's what advice I would give at least.
You know, I'm very focused on education and this bullying campaign because I think that it's important to say this is something that you shouldn't have to tolerate, you shouldn't have to deal with. You are supported in not dealing with it, and we are here to make sure that it is something that doesn't continue.
So as we think about how to end bullying in America, my main message to you is to remember that the power to end bullying lies within each of us. That ultimately it's how we regard each other and treat each other that determines whether or not a culture and an environment that permits bullying exists or not.
In the last 8 years, Asian American Pacific Islanders have enjoyed greater access to Congress and to the White House, including to executive agencies like the Department of Justice, and in large measure that is due to the White House initiative on Asian American Pacific Islanders and their efforts to both advance our interests, but to also amplify the interests of our community.
It was a very special event for me just because I was glad that the White House initiative was able to provide a platform for all of us to speak. I also know that I wasn't the only one going through this, and it does give you that feeling of support that people will have your back.
So I recently just moved into this beautiful studio with no stove. But it is my own place, and it is something that I am very, very proud of myself for. I've worked very hard to get to this point in my life, and it's made my life very happy.
I came to America when I was 2 years old. There was a domestic violence incident that happened back in Taiwan. And had we returned to Taiwan, we would have returned to certain death. So that's why we stayed. My mom wanted us kids to grow up in a safe environment, and she wanted us to have a better life here in America. Because at the time, NYU didn't offer financial aid for undocumented immigrants. I had to pay my tuition out of pocket. So I went from being one of the top graduates to becoming a nanny instantly. It made me feel like I couldn't really use my skills for anything. Part of the reason why I never really came out as undocumented was because of this fear that I had of being undocumented. And within the Asian community, if you're undocumented, it puts some sort of a shadow over your family. You know, it's an embarrassment for you to be less than the model minority.
With the DACA initiative, what it has done is to open up so many doors for undocumented people like myself to really come out and get jobs that they've always wanted to do. Initially, it was very surreal. When I first started my job as an immigration reporter, I used to come home and still look behind me because I was like, this can't be real. This DACA thing is too good to be true. DACA has been one of those things that has given me consistency in my life. I know that I'm going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. I know that every April 15th I have taxes due now. I know that every first of the month I get to pay my rent.
One of the ways in which the White House initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders used to highlight the stories of young, undocumented AAPI individuals was the White House Champions of Change process. There were so many AAPI DACA recipients who are out there working to educate the community that we felt like we had to honor them. And so Esther Lee was one of the Champions of Change. And she and many other Champions of Change came to the White House to talk about their stories. There was not a dry eye in that house when they were done with the program. She's been working on this issue for all of her life. This is her life's work, and it shows. I really commend her on her transcending the pain that she and her family went through. And it's just wonderful that the White House initiative on AAPIs was able to kind of
lift that narrative up.
Hi everyone, my name is Esther and I'm an undocumented immigrant. I would likely have never admitted to that fact prior to June 15, 2012, when President Obama announced his executive action known as
The initiative has really helped me come out of the shadows because WIAPI has done such a great job with outreach to undocumented Asians.
One Allison cake, please. DACA is one of those programs that has provided me with the kind of stability and liberty and freedom and the ability to contribute to America in a way that I would have never been able to imagine.
So the E3 Ambassadors Program is a program that we launched in 2014. E3 stands for Educate, Engage, and Empower. We're really hoping for it to be a legacy program for young leaders across the country to feel like they have ownership over the issues that they care about.
Our E3 ambassadors support our regional network in a lot of the regional engagements that we do, whether it be roundtables or trainings. And each quarter they also lead engagements around each of the 4 issue areas, so education, mental health, public service, and immigration. In addition to that, they're also each leading a capstone project on one issue that's very important to their campus or community.
My capstone project has been my life for 23 years.
I think one of the stigmas that lives in East Palo Alto specifically is that Pacific Islanders don't go to college and all they do is sell drugs, all they do is fight in high school and they get expelled, they go to continuation schools. I really want to convey to my students that college is accessible, education is accessible, and that knowledge is power.
Like education isn't just found like all of that you're going to be doing in real time, you know, in real life.
My everyday challenge to my students whenever I encounter them is, you know, be real with yourself. You know, what are you good at? What would make you get out of bed? Having them be real about what they want and giving them that opportunity to think for themselves, that is going to be the cause of a lost generation becoming found. At the regional network this past December, I had a breakthrough moment where I stood in front of over 150 community allies. I remember the first question I'd asked was,
and I just want to know, are there any Pacific Islanders in the room?
No one raised their hand, and I started crying. That's when it happened. And
so overwhelmed being Tongan American in this room and just seeing everyone here that's helping us as Pacific Islanders getting to where we need to be.
And it wasn't the fact that I felt disconnected, maybe disconnected that my people weren't there, but I couldn't recognize what support really was until that moment when people with high titles, high positions came up to me and said, I understand, I feel you. This is like an internal battle that I have with myself, you know, having the Pacific Islander being attached to the Asian American acronym. But in that moment I was like, we need that. And it's not one or the other, but it's how can we strengthen each other, you know, being both minorities of the minority. When I was there at the regional network and talking to these people who have done, you know, years of service for their community as well as the wider AAPI community, I'm just like, wow, to invite us young leaders to be at the table for that whole time was inspiring. I hope that one day, whether it be me on the commission or another Pacific Islander on the commission, and then we have, you know, the 16th round of E3 ambassadors, and there's a couple Pacific Islanders there, and they start seeing us, you know, and one of them goes up and just is very emotional and asks, are there any Pacific Islanders in the room? And we can raise our hand and they can be like, wow, these are the people that are doing, you know, and it's just like this perpetual cycle of inspiration. And so I'm very, very grateful to be a part of the E3 ambassadorship and just recognizing it as a stepping stone.
When I see the faces of all the young people who've come in and out of this work with the initiative, I'm really proud of them moving on to bigger and better things. You know, one of the things that we always hear is this mandate is so big and broad, so how do you know that you've actually accomplished it? And for us, where we make a difference is to give people access that they normally wouldn't have. For a lot of our communities, they haven't had access to the federal government in terms of the sense of them understanding the inner workings, and we've been really trying to help communities better their lives by better understanding how to engage with the federal government. I think the initiative has done a great job in being that bridge and connecting both sides.